And ultimately, it comes down to what you've had access to, during these last 12 or so weeks in your training. Like, have you had a rig? Have you had a barbell? So you have to identify exactly, the exercises and the movement patterns that you've not been able to do, and then those are the exercises and areas that you need to be aware of when you are getting back into the gym.
Hello guys, and welcome to the new JST Compete podcast. Here we have head coach and owner of JST Compete, Steven Fawcett, alongside him right-hand man Jak Cornthwaite, and myself, Kyle Clark. In each episode we're going to talk about different topics that are going to help you along on your fitness journey. Before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss out on future podcasts.
Today's first topic is going to be talking back to training, as we are currently in a lockdown and trying to figure out what's the best way to get back into certain things like weightlifting, gymnastics, along them lines really. So my sort of biggest question is the safest way, and I presume that's probably going to be what a lot of the people are going to be thinking about. Obviously you don't want to hit any injuries as we go back in. So just some general pointers and what you guys think.
Yeah, it's a good topic, I'm sure, and it's good that people, there's people on our program that are messagers and asking, when gyms are back open, what should they be doing? It's good that people are at least thinking about it, rather than just being excited to chuck themselves back in head first. So it's good that people are aware that they can't just go straight back into it. And ultimately, it comes down to what you've had access to, during these last 12 or so weeks in your training. Like, have you had a rig? Have you had a barbell? So you have to identify exactly, the exercises and the movement patterns that you've not been able to do, and then those are the exercises and areas that you need to be aware of when you are getting back into the gym. And getting exposed to them again. Sorry,
go on.
It's looking likely, isn't it, now that, like, I think they said from the 4th of July in the UK, so that's like 4 weeks time, that we're probably going to be able to go back into gyms, whether that's kind of, we're only allowed in for like 2 to 3 sessions a week, which will probably kind of naturally break some people in a little bit when it comes back to, doing stuff they've not been able to. But it's good, like you said, Steve, that people are starting to think about it now. And for us, like programming wise, where this is the time now, like 4 to 6 weeks out, we can start preparing you guys to kind of ease you back in and, look at loading up certain muscles we might not have done for the past 6 to 8 weeks in the same way.
I feel like on that topic of like muscles, I feel like it's more, people still have that strength, but it's like ligaments and tendons that take that beating, don't they? Because they haven't really got more exercise. Is that what you think? It's adding in that tempo sort of stuff. And
it's they've just not been exposed to certain movement patterns and like certain like end ranges. Like, just take kipping for example, which is probably one of the big ones. There's not really any way that you can replicate. There's a few things you can do, but you can't fully replicate that stress that you get there through the shoulders.
The force you're gonna get
when you come through kipping with force and speed. There's exercise you can do to keep your shoulders healthy and keep them functioning, but you can't really replicate that too much. We put stuff in like walking lunges with a swing overhead with some light dumbbells, and that kind of that's replicating that movement, but it's nowhere near the same amount of speed or force. So the load that's going through the shoulders is significantly less. So, and it's this same topic goes, and it applies the same for, if you've had to have 2 weeks off of training because you've gone on holiday, or you've been ill for a few weeks and you've not been able to get into the gym, because you've not had the energy or you've just not been feeling well. or you've had an off season, you've had 3-4 weeks just completely chilling out. You might have just done a big competition and you just need some time off. And it's that return to sport protocol, which is just this. It's the same whenever you're getting back into the gym and training.
So not just for lockdown, it's going to be everything.
So don't just like whatever information we give you now. It's not just for like this doesn't just happen for lockdown. Like this happen. This is constantly like how you should be returning to training when you've not been exposed to intensity and volume for a while. So
what about on volume?
Yeah.
So what were we saying? So I think a lot of people are going to be like not done so much, but are going to be like, I'm going to go back and train this much straight away. So what's the protocol for them to not get too excited, if you like? Just because they're back training, we've been locked down or we've not been doing nothing for a long period.
I think Jak touched on it there when he said you might only be allowed in for 2 or 3 sessions a week, but I also think there'll be a time cap that you're allowed in. If there's only going to be a certain amount of people in the gym at a time, you've got your own little area, then you might only have 45 minutes or an hour to be in the gym and train. So, that automatically helps things a little bit. But then, then the people might run the risk of trying to cram loads in because they don't have, they don't have 2 hours just to take it easy and just do things at a relaxed pace. Like they might feel like they need to cram 90 minutes of training into 45 minutes, and that's where you could come across a few issues. Volume-wise, again, people need to understand their bodies and what they have been exposed to previously. What level of volume could they safely and effectively handle when they were training, everything was normal in the gyms, and kind of like seeing then a bit of a timeline of what they're doing now, what they used to be doing, and then every 2 to 3 weeks you want to be just gradually being able to up that volume until you over a 6 to 8 week period you're back to where you were at
pre-COVID.
I suppose that's a good question there. Like you've said, that timeline. I think that'd be quite. Like a lot of people be like, well, when should I go back to like doing all that? What should you be looking out for? Signs of being fatigued, obviously, or just general rule of thumb. So people just don't just go for it, or not. If you know what I mean.
It's hard to give general advice, but if let's say that what you were doing before lockdown is 100%, let's call that 100%, and then what you're doing now, let's say someone like you, for example, Kyle, is you've not had access to a rig, so you've not been able to do any kipping, gymnastics movements, or any rings. So your level now of volume of that is 0%.
Yeah.
And let's say your 100% was 60 ring muscle ups per week.
Yeah.
100 to 120 toaster bar per week. Maybe chest to bars and maybe another 40 or 50 bar muscle ups. So let's say that's if you worked out that that's what you were doing per week, and you were fine in terms of like that wasn't too much.
Yeah.
That was like a good level for you. Then you've got a bit of a scale there. It's like you're currently on 0, and you were at these numbers.
Yeah.
And then when you need to kind of like gradually work back to that point. It doesn't mean like don't do any.
No.
Just like anything, when you're returning from an injury and you kind of like using those muscle groups again, then just keeping a high rest period so that your quality of movement stays high, and you can the muscle groups are fully recovering.
Just keeping that intensity a little bit lower as well.
Yeah, don't push in, not be pushing the intensity too much, not chucking these exercises in with other exercises so that they're kind of pre-fatigued. Just doing the things that you've not been able to do for the last few months, just on their own, in controlled environments.
I actually remember
going at your own speed.
I think I was like injured a little bit, and I was like normal back 6 weeks, and I come back and I'd just done a CrossFit workout. I just jumped in a JST class, and it wrote me off for about a week.
Yeah.
Just because obviously we just had all the movements in there, every muscle up, well. And I just went for it after having a long time off, and it just killed me. It was better just to be like, I'll do a bit of conditioning, bit of gymnastics.
Yeah, it's the same concept. So, like, I try and put it in another sport. Like, you know, a lot of us played football before, and if you go through, I don't know if we've tried playing football, you know, in the last couple of years where we go and do the odd 7-a-side game, and how often does the ball come to you? You try and ping it 30 meters, and your hip and your leg is just like your hip flexors just killing your adductors. You feel like you've just because they've just not been exposed to that specific movement. You think, I've been doing CrossFit every day for the last 6 years. How was my legs hurting from just kicking a football? But they've not been exposed to that specific movement of, you know, quite a fast swing through with your leg, running into that ball with a bit of speed, then planting your body weight, and then you know, kicking the ball. So it just goes. It's the same principle there. And when we've come back from having a few weeks off after the games, or, you know, after a big competition, is that everything that we're doing training wise, and this is why when we have off seasons, is that we're training conditioning, weightlifting, gymnastics, like all separately and all in controlled environments, and developing them so that the ceiling of those movements can get higher, so that when we gradually make it a bit more sport specific, we can handle the volume, and we can gradually build that intensity of mixing everything up together.
Like a classic CrossFit workout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
quite demanding.
That's where just jumping straight into a CrossFit workout, let's say a 15-minute AMRAP of chest to bar pull-ups and you know, deadlifts, or a bunch of snatches, you know, a bunch of exercises you've not done, 15-minute AMRAP, you're gonna perform crap. Like, you're not gonna go that fast, so you're gonna get a little bit unmotivated about that. 2, you're gonna be very sore for the next few days. And yeah, I don't know what 3 is, but it's just not going to be great. It's just not. When you think about it like this now, you think, well, yeah, why would I do that? But you can easily just get back in the gym. You know, your mates are there.
The excitement will take over.
Coach is hyping you up.
Yeah,
and you can easily just get yourself into that position. And
actually, I think that's another good point. Having like certain coaches from gyms that are going to hype the gym up because it's reopened.
Yeah,
I think you could easily fall into that, can't you? Like, I'll jump in a class because everyone's doing it. Next thing you know, you've got a torn ligament.
Yeah,
just because you're just cleaning 150.
You've got to understand exactly what you've been exposed to, like what you've been doing over the last 3 months, and what your position is. And if like anything, if you have a good time off, usually after a big time off of something, once you have a bit of time and building it back in, the ceiling of that exercise gets higher. Like, you start improving, like that plateau that you've been through, because you've laid off it for, let's say it's snatching. Let's say your snatch has not gone up for, you know, years or months and months, and then you take 6 weeks away from snatching, and then you revisit it again. And just because, you know, you've given that your body and
a lot of time to recover,
central nervous system, like a big time off, it's ready to go big again, and you'll be ready to handle more intensity, more volume, if you gradually get your body to that point.
I think with go on. I was going to say, like, with the Unlock Your Squat kind of program, like you say, you've taken that time off, you know, doing snatching, like heavy squats, everything else, and work on them kind of foundational bits, and that foundation that people, you know, have probably neglected because they've been focusing a bit more on the fancy stuff. That foundation is going to be so much bigger now that when it, like you say, when it does come back to squatting, like, it's, you know, it's got a bigger foundation to kind of, you know, place that itself on again. So if you have been taking advantage of, you know, like the Unlock Your Squat program, this gymnastic one that we're getting sorted, like, it's only gonna
So these sort of foundation programs are brilliant, really, just to like ease yourself back in, coming back in with the load and everything.
Yeah,
like,
so we put it together. Jack's been working on a gymnastics program that we'd already kind of written, but it was it's going to be similar to the phase one of the cycle with what we've done, and how it's similar and why we're using phase one is, if you think that's phase one of an off-season program. So prior to that, people have had a bit of time off, so they're coming from going into phase one, not having done like loads of kipping or well, it's gymnastics problems. Yeah, a load of kipping movements, or not being able to dangle and swing around from rings. So it's the same kind of thing now. Is that's not what you've not been able to do that for the last few months. So although you're not going to be able to be kipping again or dangling from rings over the next few weeks until the gym's open, it's just loading up those muscle groups so that they're at least going into when you go into kipping. They're getting used to being activated. It's just not quite as being as specific to dangling off a rig, but as much as you can do now, so that when the gyms do open, you're ready to go. And just on that point where we've everyone's been forced to kind of chill out, haven't they? Everyone's just been there's an excuse there, but which is a good enough excuse, where people can't just be going into the gym and just like smashing themselves and doing a competition and then getting straight back in the gym. I go on about it quite often about people needing to let themselves rest after gym, and everyone's now, unless you've got a home gym where you can keep sending it, everyone's had that 12-week period, at least 12-week period, where they've had to relax. They've had to spend less time in the gym. They can't be lifting heavy weights, 2, 3, 4 times a week. They can't be doing super hard workouts. They're limited to body weight or the odd dumbbell. And it's a blessing in disguise, I think. I think you'll see everyone else who has had that time off over the last few months, they'll find that in a couple of months' time, their motivation, their reaction to like stimuluses that they'll be giving themselves, whether we're going through a heavy squat program or the strength stimulus that they'll be getting, the body will be absorbing it up, and they'll react to whatever training stimulus they're given a lot better than what they used to be doing, because the body has had that time where it's just completely just kind of like rested and not just kind of do more, work more, lift heavier, be busier. Everyone's, I don't know about you guys, but I've had to slow down a bit in this last 12 weeks because you've got no other choice, so you've got to stay at home. And I think it's been a good break just in general for everyone. And you'll find that people, when they do ease themselves back in, and when they ease themselves back in properly, they'll find that the bodies will just, they'll thank them for the time off that it's had. And it's hard to accept while it's happening, because you're detraining, you're going through a phase where you're getting worse at muscle ups or gymnastics, kipping. You've not been on it, so of course you're going to get worse at them. And it's a hard thing to accept that you put years and years of training to get this good, and people maybe feel like when they get back to the gym they're going to be at square one, and they might like the performances might be like not at square one, but close to, because they've just been away from the movement so often. But the muscle memory is still there. You still know how to do the skill. Like, it's still clocked in your brain, and the muscle memory from your brain to muscles is still there. And as soon as that comes back and the exposure to those muscles of, the body's adapted from it, the ceiling will become higher, because the body's had that time to rest. There's an analogy that Ben Bergeron said. I can never remember the exact words, but he was talking about Catherine's snatch technique, or it might have been, it was a technique on, or maybe it's Brooke Wells. It was a technique on something, some lifts, and he said, you imagine you're underwater, and at the top of the water is just like this layer of ice, and that's like you've rise up to the top of the water, and there's this layer of ice, and you're trapped under the water. And to get out of the water, you've got to swim right back down. look around, find the hole in the ice, and then swim around that way to get out of the water to get above the water. And it's the same thing as where, like before lockdown, if people were just like, training and competing and then just training, living a busy lifestyle and going to work and then training again and trying to juggle the kids around. Like this time where we've had to just relax and just drop back down into the bottom of the ocean, and then had a bit of a chance to, find a bit of a different path, and then, come back. And I think it's good timing with the Open being in 5 months. People will be back to normal in 4 to 6 weeks easily. And then, motivation will be up through the roof. Bodies will be reacting better to training. And I reckon there'll be some pretty impressive performances coming through in the Open and for next season, because everyone will just be so hungry. They'll be mentally hungry for it, and their bodies will be ready to take on more load.
Definitely. Okay, what about what are you guys going to offer in the program on the stages of getting these guys back, as in with the weightlifting, let's say, is there certain things that are going to be planned to, I don't know, like tempo stuff, or is there anything that you guys have already got it planned out?
So, again, we put, we have something that's been in the program now for a couple of years, and it's about self-regulation. So you'll often see we put rep ranges, set ranges, or weight ranges. It might be 3 to 5 sets, or 60 to 75%, and we put those ranges in so that people who are stuck for time, who do need a bit more, they're just fatigued from whether it's from the training or other lifestyle factors, or they've had a week where they've not been able to get to the gym. They can just keep on then following the program, but they just drop to the lower end set ranges, the lower end rep, intensity ranges, weight ranges, and then they can still get the same work done, and it's giving the body the same stimulus as someone who follows the top end set ranges, who's been able to train as usual for the last 6 weeks. It's the two bodies there are going to react the same or similar. Whereas if you went in and if you had been off for a week or you had been ill, and then you went straight back into top end set ranges, it's going to tip you over the edge. It's going to be too much. Yeah. So that same protocol that we have now of the self-regulation, where you can drop the volume yourself and just go off how you're feeling, is just going to continue to be in there. And this is just a perfect example of how
to use it.
Someone might use it. And I think we said it on the last little chat that we had, is again, identify what you've had exposure to. You might have been able to weightlift through, you might have had a barbell, you might have been able to follow weightlifting, just as normal for the whole time. So you don't necessarily need to scale down the volume too much of that. But you might not have been on a rig, so you do need to scale down the volume of that.
Yeah.
And just be aware of the muscle soreness and the DOMs that you get. You're going to get DOMs, you're going to get sore, but it doesn't want to be like excruciatingly, just on Murph type sore. You just want to be able to get a bit of soreness. It wants to have gone after a couple of days, and then you can think about loading it up again.
Yeah.
Like little and often would be the key, to do a small volume of an exercise, but revisit it every few days rather than just like once a week, smash it into the ground, give it 7 days to recover.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and then like Jack, you can take on the gymnastics stuff we've been putting together.
Do you want to delve into it now?
Yeah.
Give it a bit more info, really. I think just so they know exactly what's coming, and also if we can direct it where if people outside the JST Compete are listening, like they can implement it into their own training or such. You know what I mean? Give it a little bit more, information on that.
Mm-hmm. So the kind of gymnastics that we're putting together now, like I say, it's probably going to be like a minimum of 4 weeks that we might get back in gyms. It might be a little bit longer depending on, you know, what your gym owner is going to be deciding that you're going to do. But basically it's a mixture of core work. So we're building that tension up in like your abs again, not just in your abs, like in your hamstrings and your glutes when you come back into that arch. Tempo strength work. Everyone probably at the start of lockdown, they were probably hammering that, you know, quite a lot. And you can see that it's probably tapered off a little bit. There's probably 3-4 weeks really, and people probably haven't been doing quite as much. So it's good to kind of build that time under tension again as well. So there's a bit of tempo work in there. There's plenty of negatives and pauses. So negatives, so we're controlling, you know, the eccentric phase of the movement. It's key, especially with kipping. It's such like an explosive concentric that we train not just, you know, that phase of the movement. We want to train the eccentric so we can control every part of the movement, and holds as well. So isometric work. I don't know if some of you might have read my article in.
Yeah, I was going to get on to that because that was pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
This side of the eccentric and all that pauses stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot of people find them quite boring, but holds they're pretty key. Like I've realised more so recently from, you know, doing that reading and writing them articles as well. Like being able to kind of flick the switch. So that's why we do kind of pauses, because it's usually the point of the movement where you're having to change direction pretty fast. So like if we're doing dead hangs, that's usually, you know, the bottom of the kip before we come back round, or a chin over bar hold, where if you're doing kipping, you know, pull-ups or bar muscle-ups or anything, you end up kind of pushing back away from the bar. So there's plenty of like pauses and holds in there as well. And then for the dynamic work, obviously probably most of us haven't been able to get on the rig. So Steve mentioned before the lunges with kind of the overhead swings. That's just going to start to load up your shoulders a little bit more. Obviously, our body weight's a lot more than you know, a couple of kilos of plates in our hands, kind of swinging overhead. But if we get a decent amount of reps in, it's just going to, you know, prepare the shoulders and all those muscles that haven't come through in a kip, you know, really quite fast over the past kind of 10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mixture of all of them and bringing them back in. So when we do get back on a rig, you know, our body's not like, what the hell is going on, or bicep going ping, or whatever else really. So
there's no stress factors there, so it'd be.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's probably a lot of people that have been doing a lot of mobility, like probably extra on top of the program. They've been doing like the Go Up mobility or whatever. So they've got like this new range of motion.
Mobility. Get his face. No.
Snap walk. What should we call? Snap walk.
So they've got this new range of motion, like I can get my arm all the way back here, but there's no control there whatsoever. And that's especially when people don't prepare themselves before they get back onto a rig.
Yeah,
like, they're your injuries straight away. So it's all exercises to prepare you ready to go.
Weightlifting, in terms of weightlifting as well, it's like it's very simple in my eyes. We put those snatch and clean and jerk warm-ups in, but you know, if you do those properly, you know, you've rocked up quite a lot of reps there with an empty barbell, and you've drilled in the correct bar path. And you know, the first time just getting onto a bar, just doing 20 minutes of that snatch warm-up could be enough to do your snatching for that day. Like you've done the pull, you've done the snatch deadlift, the high pull, power, the overhead squats, the full snatch. You've probably rocked up, you know, 60 to 100 reps with an empty bar in movements that you've not done for 12 weeks. So that's enough for session one. Same applies for clean and jerk, and then doing that for a couple of weeks, and then just potentially adding like a little bit of weight, like go through it with an empty barbell, and then go through it with 5s on each side or 10s on each side, and you'll know when you can start adding more weight, because like when you catch the barbell for snatch, for example, you'll feel like you've got good tension there, and you know your bar path's feeling good, and you just feel in control. Whereas if it feels alien, it feels like the bar path's kind of like swinging around, or your catch is just like it's a bit sore in the wrists or the shoulders, then you're not ready for that weight. So just drop back to an empty bar, you know, and just build it up as you would usually in one snatch session. You build the weight up. Just imagine that one snatch session has become 4 weeks, and you're just building that weight up across the 4 weeks. And there's obviously other things like accessory work that a lot of people will be doing a lot of during lockdown. You know, lunges and Bulgarian split squats is probably what a lot of people have had access to. But just gradually, now you do get access to more weight, like with your back squats or front squats. Again, just gradually work the load up so that you feel like the muscles are controlling the exercise, and there's not just like loads of strain. If you feel like the strain on ligaments, like if it's front squat, if you feel like the strain there in your wrists or your elbows are sore, then it's just because they've obviously not been exposed to that front rack position. So, you know, don't do loads and loads of weight at loader reps. Just keep the weight low, you know, 50% of your max, and just do sets of 3 to 5 with high rest periods, so that every rep and every set that you do, you know, you're not putting your body under too much stress, but you also are exposing it enough to what it's not had previously. So yeah, like your gymnastics, it's the higher skill elements that a lot of people not been able to get to, like your snatch and clean and jerk, potentially heavy squats and heavy deadlifts, and then your rig and ring work, kipping, and like it's those higher skill exercises that are the main ones to just be aware of.
Cool. What about, let's say, go into a bit of mentality approach to it. Some people might be worried about where they was and where they're not now.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a stress factor for some people, can't it? So what's there to take away from it, saying, all right, let's just not worry about that as such, or, okay, I might just have to take 10% off my lifts, or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just to build that confidence and feel better, I suppose.
I think first of all, you've just got to accept that if you've not snatched for 12 weeks, you're gonna have got worse at snatching. Like you're not gonna have got worse, but your body's just not ready to snatch the weights that it was snatching previously. You know, you've not forgotten how to snatch. You might feel a bit rusty at first, and that's why I said about the snatch warm up there and getting the bar path and the technique in. But I think the first part of the mindset just becomes of acceptance and just being realistic and think logically about what's happened over the last 12 weeks and what training you've been doing. Like if you can first then accept and go into training knowing full well that you're not going to be as good as at kipping anymore, and you know if you had 1 or 2 ring muscle ups before the lockdown, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to do a ring muscle up anymore. You know, if 1 was your max set, like just accepting that, and once you've accepted it, then you can start thinking about, well, how do I get back to, you know, to get into where I was. Whereas if you just go in straight into, if you like, so if for that example there, if you did have 1 ring muscle up and just the 1, like rather than going right, do a little warm up, let's see if I can still do ring muscle ups. Some people might fly over and doing fantastic. They might be a bit sore the next day, or they might pop a peck off, but you know, there's a good chance that you're not going to do one, and then you're going to get pissed off, and then you know, you throw your toys out the pram. A funny story, actually. Well, I don't know if you've been following Mitch. You know, we send each other the odd message now and again. We're both into cycling now, and we have a little bit of a cycling friends chat. And he's not been in his gym. He owns CrossFit Wolverhampton. He's not been in his gym really. He did all those stupid burpees. Not stupid. It's good cause. but he's not been training other than cycling and, you know, doing some home WODs. And he said he went into the gym last week, tried to do a max unbroken set of bar muscle ups, and he did 12, which is quite a high number. But this is from someone who could do 30 unbroken. You know, so he's dropped less than 50% of his max set, and he said it was like lats blew out. Like the lats weren't used to that loading of the muscle groups like over and over for rep on rep. So there's just an example. Like there's a high level athlete, and that's how much he's detrained over that time. Yeah. And although it's a bit annoying, there's nothing we can do about the situation. So you're just going to have to, you know, crack on. And rather than thinking how far behind you've got, just start building like get a little bit of momentum and start gradually building to what you were at previously, and let that be a goal first of all, rather than thinking, right, I could snatch 100, I want to get back in the gym and start get towards 110. Like, no, just forget about 110, start thinking about 80, then think about 85, 90, and just get back to it. And you'll find when you get back to where you were, you've got your body, like I said before, will have more to give to surpass where you were at. And it's an example that me and Jak have gone through, you know, numerous times now. From when we take prolonged time off, people probably say that we've retired because we've took so long off. But like,
I find that so funny.
I'm a funny guy. People said I've retired 4 times, but it's like I know now.
Back 90.
Yeah, I know now at the point that I'm at is I know I can physically still train and, you know, get my performances to a high level, but I can't do that all year round anymore. Like I've got to have times where I'm setting back, you know, got a business to run, got a family, you know, making sure that that's all running fine and dealing with that kind of lifestyle stress. And only when the time's right can I then like get back into some, you know, more regular routine training and build back up. And it's that building back up phase that it's actually once you've done it a few times, it's the exciting part, knowing that I'm only 10k off me previous max, and you can build that momentum back up. And then when you do get to surpass to where you were, like it's you know, it's just a good like intrinsic motivation wise. It's just, you know, you feel great for doing it.
I suppose, like it's saying, like these things are going to happen in professional athletes' career. They're going to drop off and they're going to come back and get better. And
you have to go through a stage of detraining at some point in your career. Like you look at boxers like Ricky Hatton's actually a very extreme example. But you see what Ricky Hatton used to go through. I'm not saying, you know, go on the piss and take but he used to just fully come off training. And then when a fight would be, when he'd know that there was a fight coming up, then he'd get himself back up. You know, he'd be in a better nick than most people. Actually, it was Kratos's podcast with Karen Porter, and it's quite it's nice to hear that other athletes are the same as well. Is that he goes through phases where when he knows there's competition coming up, there's something he needs to focus on, he'll be able to go all in with his training and just like have everything like really tightly up to that competition. And then after that competition, he just takes, you know, 4 or so weeks off and, you know, doesn't touch the gym. And, you know, he might just do the odd session just to make himself, you know, feel a bit better. But it's not training.
Not competitive training.
Yeah, it's not competitive training. It's not putting your body under high loads of stress day after day. And he feels like he can get to that higher peak of performance when he needs to by just going up and down, rather than just trying to get a fitness level and like hold on to it for the rest of your career.
I think that's a good thing to expose actually, because when I first moved up to JST, when I came up last summer, I was like, these guys are going to be flat out, you know. And I think obviously, Steve, you had the baby or whatever, and Jak was, I don't know, you was going to take time out, but then you went to the games, didn't you?
Yeah.
In 2019 again. But I see, like, you guys train just like normal. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't, like, we think like do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like everyone was like going to go crazy, and I was wrapped up in this crazy like sort of training and
Yeah.
8 hours a day. But it's not like that. It isn't like that, is it? And I think a lot of people out there on the program literally be like, I've got to do more. I've got to do this. I've got to get back in that gym.
Yeah.
And that stresses them out, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
for you guys just to say, like, you know, you get that. You do take time out where you deload quite a bit, etc. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably good for them to hear. Everyone to hear, basically.
Yeah. Go on, Jak.
You just end up like, if we hammer each other every single day, like, of the week when we're training, we're going to burn out in, you know, after two weeks max. So you've definitely got to, you know, kind of pace yourself and pick your days, pick your battles. Like, one week you might think, yeah, I'm going to really go ham on this whiteboard workout, whereas the next week you might have, you know, pushed the day's training on the Friday instead, and you might just not be feeling the whiteboard workout on the Saturday. So you just kind of go into the workout and you know you're not going to do as well, but, you know, you're still involved in that community aspect and putting your score in and everything else.
Definitely.
It's just...
It's one thing, actually, me and Jak have spoke about it a few times, is being able to, like, rise up to the occasion, like when it's at a competition, or, you know, when it's a workout that means something, where it's a qualifier, like, you'd notice, you saw us on the last Open, but you'd notice a complete different change of atmosphere, mood, when you know that there's a workout or an event coming up that me and Jak are, like, working for, or there's a qualifying workout coming up. Like,
Definitely.
It's different, and it needs to be different. And I think it's an area there where people, they struggle to, like, you know, alter the intensity that they can give to training. Like, sometimes it needs to be just, like, ramped up, and there's nothing stopping you, and everything in that day or week or whatever, how long ever it is focused on training. And I think people kind of, like, let's say that's 100%, and people hover around the 80 to 85% of, like, where they're just constantly going hard. But it's constantly quite hard, and they're constantly training quite hard all of the time, and they're consistently quite hard, which is good, consistent training. But if your goal is top end performance, there needs to be points where that's down to, like, 50%, so that you can reach 100% when you need to. And there's, like, we never really, like, agree, like, we start now, like me and Jak, is just be like, we'll know that, like, training's going to start getting ramped up now, and I don't know if you've been in the gym when we've gone through a phase of training where, you know, we are regularly pushing
Definitely, yeah. Oh, yeah, like, that's what I mean. Like, it's, when I see that, like, when you was training for the games, it was all, like, very professional, wasn't it? Straight in there and, like, getting your things done and all that.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, like, and then, like, just seeing your other side where you just took a bit of time out and things like that, where I think people see it as they see everyone just going in all that time, where it is just when you've got something specifically, you guys know, and you've got in there, got the work done, sort of thing, and then just eased off. Yeah. And I suppose that sort of thing would help people out understanding that in their training, I think, along them lines.
Yeah, and it's tough because the standard of CrossFit is so high these days. Like, people that want to get to a sanctioned event, like, you have to be a good level to get to a sanctioned event. Like, you have to be fit. So, and you have to be strong. So, like, accepting that I need to then step back and not train as much to then be able to train harder. It's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to let go of for a little bit. Like, if you have been just kind of, like, banging your head against the wall.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. I can tell that's why it's not in bed.
Yeah, I've been sunbathing.
So, like, it's a hard thing to accept, like, to step back, and only once you've done it and then experienced how much better you are when you go back into training, and then how much higher you can get, will you be able to accept that it works. And Jak's an example now. I mean, he took a decent amount of time off there after last season, and just took away any stress of training competitively or competing. I tried to lure him in with a few trips to Miami and Rogue, but it was up. And he just back squatted 175 for 10 or something the other week.
Yeah. And
I can tell by looking at him squat and the videos he sends, it wasn't a slow 175 for 10. Like, there was no grindy really reps, so that might have felt it. Like, he's squatting fast, and you can see his body is like reacting to the stimulus and the weight that it's being put on him. And I think you might have, the last time you were at that weight and squatting was 2016-17 time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
200 for 3. And I'm pretty sure you might be able to push those numbers now. And it's just that having that, he just had, has had a long off season, but he also had a long time where he was, going for it, get himself, get to the games and get to regionals, year after year.
How do you feel with that, Jak? Do you, like, when you sort of like took that deload, do you worry about, I'm going to lose this, I'm not going to be able to lift as much, or have you just let that all go, just sort of like, just think, do you know what, it is what it is, and I'll come back to it when I can, sort of thing?
So it definitely comes with experience, and obviously because I trained with Steven, he was already, quite an experienced athlete, and he'd been training pretty competitively for 2-3 years already. Like, he kind of passed that down to me, and then I feel like I kind of realised that quite quickly within like a year or two. So I know that when I'm going all in, like,
when you flip the switch,
this is time to start push. Yeah, like you say, flip that switch. But kind of at the moment, like, I've obviously decided to kind of take it a bit easier. Like, I'm fine with it, because, like Steve said before, I know I can, when I want to turn it back on, or if I want to turn it back on, I can do it, and I know I can get back to, pretty close to where I was, or, if I wanted to push it for an extended period of time, I could probably get better again. But I've got other things going on, like, one with the business and stuff like that with JST Compete, we're trying to push it a bit more, or just kind of, with COVID right now, it's giving me time to kind of work on, a bit more of a balance with the family and that sort of stuff. But with training, I've had the goal where I've been like, right, I'm really going to use this time to focus on my squats and build my squats up, because I am quite a strong athlete, but I know I'm not like the best mover when it comes to squatting. Like, I squat quite slow and like up and down, whereas now I've been kind of making sure that I'm moving a bit faster. Like, I've not been able, at the start, I wasn't kind of pushing the weights quite as much as I want to, because I was focusing a little bit more on speed. So just kind of things that probably maybe should have been addressed like a few years ago. I'm kind of using that time to work on it now. So
essentially make you better, really. So.
Yeah, definitely.
There's something, I can't remember the name of what they call it, but I think it's an American term. Basically, it's like when there's close to being a terrorist attack, like everyone's on alert and everything's like really tight, like the security's really tight, and there's police people out on the roads, and forces, whatever. Like, when the terrorist likelihood of a terrorist attack is so high, like, everyone's just like, everything's fully tight. Like, I can't remember the name that they call it. It's like an abbreviated term. And it's the same type of thing there as, like, I don't want to compare CrossFit to a terrorist attack, but
Feels like it when you do the workout.
Competition there is like, it's the same. It's like your nutrition, your training, your recovery, your sleep, like your time spent around everything that needs to get better at, get you better for training and get you better for competition needs to be super tight, and you can only be like that for so long. If you try and be like that all year round, then it's gonna be like everything's gonna be a little lower so that you can sustain it, because how tight you need to get to be at that top level is not a sustainable level. It's not a sustainable lifestyle, but you can do
burnout.
it. But you can do it for a certain amount of time, and your performance will get better from it. So it's like I say, it's being able to tone that down. And you know, when there's no like if we're in Billinge now and there's no chance there's going to be a terrorist attack, everyone's walking around the streets. It's pretty chilled. You don't see any policemen. You know, it's just. But you know, if there'd been a terrorist attack last week down here, then it wouldn't be the same atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? It's
Everyone's on high alert, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's aware, and everyone's not going out of the house and walking around the streets. You know, a bit similar to COVID now. When it started, you didn't leave your house, but now, you know, you're allowed 6. You know, it's the same thing. It's just that level of.
You're at a party now.
Party now. It's just being able to. I think people need to get better at. Like adjusting the amount of intensity they can put into the life and the training, like by taking it down, but also like taking it up properly as well.
I think that's one thing I did learn when I come up with JST, you guys, like just able to turn that intensity up a little bit more and then also drop it down a little bit. Like you said, I sort of found that then I was able to push a little bit harder in workouts.
Yeah.
The ones that I chose, I wanted to sort of think I can give this a good. Yeah. I actually found another gear that I've never really had. I was like, I was just literally seeing what you guys were doing, if you know what I mean.
That's why we put those, intensity ratings on the program, the RPE stuff, and I don't know how much people take notice of it, because as soon as it says AMRAP, they're like, right, I'm going as fast as possible now.
Yeah.
Like if it says 7 out of 10 and it says AMRAP, then it just means that if it's 7 out of 10 and it's 10-minute AMRAP, you don't need to get yourself hyped up to do it, and you don't need to get yourself like super like focused and ready for it. You just need to move well, move at a good pace, push yourself hard, but don't like emotionally and physically invest yourself into that as if it's the most important 10 minutes of your life, because then you're more likely to be able to do it day after day after day and increase the amount of training volume, which, there's always that big argument of what's more important, volume intensity, but you need a certain amount of volume if you're going to be able to deal with a certain amount of intensity. So the bigger the volume that you can deal with, and then in the right doses, and if it's put together well, the higher the intensity you'll be able to get. And if you're just doing the odd 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and moving well, pushing yourself hard, but not fully killing yourself, that when you do get to, let's just say, for example, that whiteboard workout on Saturday, when we say 9 out of 10 RPE, you should be able to have something in you to send it, to go really hard, because you've been kind of holding yourself. Like Reggie's a really good example where, like previously, and it's because of his mentality, he just wants to do every workout and just fucking smash it, like, and he just because he wants to, he's motivated, he wants to get good, and Jack's been having words with him, and I've tried to get in his ear that he just needs to just like settle it down, and then wait until he's like boiling and fizzing to go, and then let him go, and then how fast he goes then. Like he's done some workouts recently, and his times are just ridiculous. And
the thruster burpee one was a really good example the other week. It was like, a minute faster than more like other really good athletes, and you're like, holy shit, that's what happens when you rein it back for most of the rest of the week, and then you're like full send is on this whiteboard workout, and that's when like you're like, right, I've just been able to send it when it actually matters and when everyone else is, you know, trying to put a decent score in as well.
Yeah.
It does drive me around the bend when I'm getting like messages saying, "Oh yeah, like I'm fully sent this workout today. Like I'm dead. I'm nearly dead. I was on the first dead." No,
Oh God!
Don't. Why are you doing that today? And it says it's 7 out of 10 RPE. What are you doing?
And there's me taking him out for a 7 hour bike ride on deload week.
Oh God! I know we've sort of. Go on, Jak.
That's where Reggie now would be like, you know. So you went on that big bike ride yesterday.
Yeah.
He knows, like, especially the first half of this week, he's going to be feel pretty fucked probably for the next few days. So don't expect, you know, as much as what you were maybe hoping before. You did end up going on that bike ride as an example. So
you know what? There's good examples from the actual bike ride itself of that whole thing, but not just like solely in the bike ride. Is like we got to the very first hill. We were 10 minutes in, and it's up out of his saddle, just like going
Tommy
for it.
tanking. Yeah.
I'm just like Reggie. And just like on any of the hills, except from one of the hill where I had to frigging stop.
Oh.
I know. I didn't think like that. But, like he gets up out of his, the hill comes, he feels the hill, gets up out of his saddle and he's going for it. But this hill's like a couple of kilometres long, and he gets to like halfway through that hill, and then I just slowly just kind of like past him because he's just gone. And it's the same kind of like mentality and the same application of like just wanting to send it. The thing is, he's that good at sending it and recovering. You know, he's young and he's built well in the background into CrossFit that he'll recover and he'll go again, and it's cycling. So what harm is it actually going to do? It's not like it's sending weightlifting session after weightlifting session. So there's pretty low chance of like he's only going to get tired from it. He's not going to do any damage.
In that, like, sort of get back to the gym, obviously, returning to the gym, that intensity, people just want to be aware, don't they, when they're going straight back in, especially in the workouts, because they're going to see them, I suppose, and be like, I'm going to smash that one today. And it's like, they haven't really raised their heart rate, really, over like the 12 weeks.
Yeah, you just got to, like, everyone will be super motivated, obviously, really happy to get back in the gym. Like, it's just natural, like, see the mates, train around the mates again. But you just got to kind of like let that motivation, that will to want to just like push yourself really hard, just let it boil a little bit longer until your body is ready for it. And any intensity that you do, just make sure it's on the movements and the exercises that you've been able to previously do. So if you've had a rowing machine at home and you've been able to row, then like
Sundays on the row.
Yeah, push the rowing workouts hard. I know everyone's probably sick of burpees, but you know the body weight stuff. You'd be able to push hard, and you'd be able to get good intensity there because there's a good chance, like we said before, that everything you've been able to do is quite low skill based. So you'll still be able to get good intensity. The higher skill stuff that you might not have been able to do, just gradually build it up, and in 6 weeks' time, you'll be able to push it just as hard as everything else. And you'll be in a better position in 3 months' time, definitely.
Good stuff. Feel like we covered enough, really, to get these guys with a good bit of knowledge.
Yeah, hopefully there's enough takeaways. Like I say, it's hard knowing exactly everyone's situation. Your two situations have been quite similar, actually, but you know, some people might be the opposite. They might have had a pull-up bar on the wall, but they might not have had a barbell. But like I said in the beginning, just identify what you've not had exposure to, and just be sensible. Keep the volume low, gradually build it up, little and often rather than lots.
Yeah, the awareness, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm just going to close this out then, guys, yeah?
Cool.
Well, hopefully today's topic has helped you guys, and thank you for listening or watching on our YouTube page. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for the next episode.
Thank you.
Peace.
See ya.
See ya.